Let me share a deeply personal and complex story that's been unfolding over the past couple of years. My ex-husband left me for a younger woman from his workplace while I was pregnant, and now, after she tragically lost their baby, she's been harassing me. To make matters worse, he attempted to force himself on me recently. For privacy reasons, I'll be using fake names, and I'm posting this from a throwaway account. I'm a 36-year-old woman, and my ex-husband, Tom, who is 35, left me 2 years ago for his co-worker, Tammy, who is now 25. From the moment I met her, I sensed something was off. At a work event while I was heavily pregnant, she boldly told me, "You'd better step up your wife game, or I might just steal him from you." I was taken aback by her audacity, but I tried to brush it off. Little did I know that 3 months later, she would make good on that threat. When Tom moved out, Tammy had the nerve to accompany him to our home to help him pack his things. She tried to have a private conversation with me about how she envisioned our relationship moving forward since she was going to be a part of my life now. With a smug smile, she said, "Told you I'd steal him away." It was surreal and infuriating. Surprisingly, in hindsight, I'm grateful she took Tom off my hands. When he casually mentioned that Tammy was only 23, and that her brain wasn't even fully developed yet, I felt a wave of disgust so strong that it transformed my heartbreak into relief. It was as if a veil had been lifted, and I saw him for who he truly was. During the divorce proceedings, I managed to secure everything. I caught Tom while he was still enveloped in his affair fog, which worked to my advantage. We agreed on 50-50 custody of our children for their sake. I remain civil with him so we can both attend our kids' events without causing a scene, but beyond that, I genuinely have no interest in his or Tammy's lives. In June, Tammy showed up instead of Tom to pick up the kids. She was practically bouncing with excitement, eager to flaunt her new engagement ring. She gushed about wanting me and my daughters to be bridesmaids at their wedding. I was in a hurry, trying to get our cat to the vet, so I merely responded with a non-committal MHM to her enthusiastic chatter. She seemed visibly upset that I wasn't giving her the reaction she craved. A few months later, in September, she pulled a similar stunt. Tammy approached me to announce that she was pregnant. Again, my lack of enthusiasm or interest seemed to unsettle her. I simply didn't have the energy to engage with her dramatics. In December, as I was opening my car door, Tammy exclaimed, "Tom's finally getting a son." I couldn't resist a bit of sarcasm. "I'm sure Lord Tom is thrilled to have an heir to inherit his vast lands and titles," I replied dryly. This comment stirred up some drama, especially since Tom's family found it amusing when Tammy tried to badmouth me. It was satisfying to see that her attempts to rile me up were falling flat. That December encounter was the last time I saw Tammy until today, during the kids' drop-off with Tom. As they approached, I noticed that Tammy no longer appeared pregnant. With tears streaming down her face, she told me, "We lost the baby." Choosing not to engage, I turned to Tom and said, "Our second daughter has a birthday party tomorrow at 3 o'clock, and our eldest has gymnastics at 5 o'clock. Tammy exploded. She screamed at me, calling me a heartless woman and accusing me of being bitter. She grabbed the girls' bags and stormed off. Tom confronted me, saying I could show a bit more compassion towards Tammy. He reminded me that, regardless of my feelings, she's our children's stepmother. I looked him straight in the eye and said that outside of our kids, I have no interest in their lives and I don't owe Tammy anything, especially not pity. He hurled insults at me, calling me unpleasant names before leaving. Normally, such interactions wouldn't bother me, but my ex-in-laws, with whom I've maintained a good relationship, reached out. They suggested I should have shown Tammy some empathy, and at the very least, pretended to care for the sake of the kids. It stung a bit to hear that from them, given everything that's happened. One commenter online pointed out, "So you're expected to show empathy to someone who destroyed your marriage and constantly tries to provoke you. You're not in the wrong here." I couldn't agree more. Tammy has consistently tried to insert herself into my life, claiming she wants to be friends. She tells people, including my in-laws, that I can't move past our history for the children's benefit. She even had the audacity to call me a pick-me, as if I'm the one seeking validation. Another person advised, "He's not your problem anymore, he's hers until she ages out for him. Enjoy your life, that's the best revenge." And you know what? I truly am enjoying my life. Being single is incredibly freeing. Recently, I adopted 2 senior cats, after learning that our local shelter hosts an end-of-life event each month. It allows people to give older cats a loving home in their final days. It's brought me so much joy, and I think when my kids are grown, I might just become that quirky cat lady in the neighborhood. Some suggested I should have sought more custody, because Tom isn't mentally well. They believe I owe neither him nor Tammy anything beyond basic interaction for the kids' sake. I assured them that I never speak ill of Tom to our children. In the beginning, I vented to close family and friends, but now I've genuinely moved on. Our kids are smart, and they'll form their own opinions as they grow. I'm even grateful that Tammy has been a good stepmother to them. However, I remain cautious. My daughters are perceptive, especially my eldest. She told her father that I've never spoken ill of him, and she wouldn't tolerate anyone trying to badmouth me. Both Tom and Tammy have, in the past, tried to glean information about me from the kids, and even attempted to portray me negatively during the bridesmaid situation. When I learned of this, I warned Tom that if it happened again, I'd consider legal action, and his own family said they'd support me. On February 3rd, I decided to address the situation directly. I sent Tom a text explaining that due to Tammy's current mental state, I'd prefer if he or his mother handled all future pickups. I also mentioned that if Tammy's mental health deteriorated further, I wanted the girls to stay with me full-time until things stabilize. Tom tried to call me, but I insisted on texting. He said he wanted a heart-to-heart conversation, aiming to discuss not just the kids, but also the relationship he hoped we could all have moving forward. He even suggested family therapy involving himself, me, Tammy, and the kids. I made it clear that if he believed the children needed therapy, I'd gladly find a suitable therapist. However, he kept steering the conversation back to us, which I wasn't interested in entertaining. Recognizing the futility of the discussion, I eventually stopped responding. I reached out to my ex-in-laws, explaining the situation and reiterating that I wanted no involvement in Tom and Tammy's personal affairs unless it directly concerned our children. I expressed that while I valued our relationship, I would reduce contact if this continued. My ex-mother-in-law apologized, admitting she was emotional due to the loss of her grandchild and her son's heartbreak. I understood and forgave her. Then things took an unsettling turn. Tammy showed up at my house unannounced. Given everything, I wisely chose not to open the door. Through my doorbell camera, which records audio and video, I communicated with her. She was distraught, pleading for forgiveness and saying she wanted to be friends. She claimed that losing her baby was karma for what she did to me. Her words were a jumble of apologies and incoherent statements. Feeling unsafe, I contacted the police, my brother, and Tom. While Tammy wasn't arrested, Tom assured my brother he'd take her home and agreed that the children should stay with me for the time being. My daughters are safe, and my brother plans to stay with me for the foreseeable future. I'm consulting a lawyer about obtaining full custody and possibly a restraining order, because I fear this situation might escalate. To address any speculations, I repeatedly told Tammy to leave my property, emphasizing that I didn't want any interaction with her. I was looking forward to a peaceful weekend, and her intrusion was unwelcome. For those accusing me of being jealous or bitter, let me clarify. I have nothing to be jealous of. Someone who betrays you isn't a prize, is Tammy's problem now. And for those suggesting that my disinterest in my ex's life means I'm not over him, remember that when someone moves on and asks to be left alone, they genuinely don't want further contact. A supportive commenter said, "I hope things improve for you, but as you mentioned, it's likely to get worse. I don't understand what people expect you to do. He cheated, left, and you've both moved on. Why should you care about his life if it doesn't involve your children? Your happiness takes precedence over whatever he's dealing with." I couldn't agree more. Some people seem to want me to play the role of the bitter ex-wife to justify their own narratives, but I've genuinely moved on. I haven't dated since the divorce, because I choose not to. Being single suits me, and I cherish the peace it brings. On February 5th, I decided to provide what might be my last update for a while. I won't be sharing more until all legal matters are resolved and my mental health has improved, which might take several months. I consulted with my lawyer, and while I won't delve into details, I have a strong case for obtaining full custody based on the evidence and witness accounts. Recently, Tom assaulted me. Thankfully, it didn't go further because my brother intervened, but the incident left me deeply shaken. I had allowed Tom to visit the kids whenever he wanted, so when he came over and was in the garden with them, I took the opportunity to shower. As I exited the bathroom, he cornered me, insisting we talk. I told him it wasn't appropriate, and asked him to either return to the girls or leave. He began confessing that he made a mistake, that Tammy was unstable, and he wanted to come back to us. I firmly told him to leave and that there was no us. He then attempted to force himself on me. My brother heard the commotion and rushed in. Unfortunately, the children overheard the altercation between my brother and Tom. I was paralyzed with shock, and couldn't comfort them as I should have. It's not a moment I'm proud of. For context, I have cameras installed in common areas of my home to monitor my cats while I'm away, one of which captured the hallway incident. I don't know how to proceed with Tom. I can't face him again, even with the presence of my father or brother, both of whom are in law enforcement. Tammy has been bombarding me and my two eldest daughters with hundreds of messages, but on my lawyer's advice, I haven't blocked her. My ex-in-laws have offered their support in any way I need. His sisters have distanced themselves from him, but since this is all recent, that might change. I'm considering relocating once everything is settled to avoid any future encounters with Tammy. To those who've reached out with support, thank you. I hope to share a positive update in the future. And to the young men sending inappropriate messages or explicit photos, please stop. I'm not interested. One commenter expressed sympathy, "My goodness, you poor thing. I'm so sorry you had to go through this. I hope the children didn't witness their father harming their mother. Best of luck in the future." I reassured them that while the kids didn't see the assault, they did hear the aftermath. Tom told them he went inside for drinks, but due to my screaming, they came in and saw my brother confronting their dad. Just to clarify, Tom didn't succeed in assaulting me fully. Another asked, "Even so, it's frightening for the kids. I can't understand why your ex thought this was appropriate, when he was there to spend time with the children." I admitted that I have no idea what's going on in his or Tammy's minds. They are both focusing on me when they should be supporting each other. During the incident, Tom said unsettling things like, "I never lost any of his kids. It felt like I was looking at a stranger, even though I've known him since I was 14. Someone else commented, "I thought the police would be involved because of Tammy, not Tom. I'm so glad your brother was there to help you. Please don't blame yourself for freezing, it's a common reaction during an assault. I'm so sorry this happened. Please tell me you're pressing charges." I confirmed that I am pressing charges, and that my children will receive counseling. My eldest is blaming herself and hasn't left my side since the incident. Now, shifting gears, I want to share another story that unfolded in my professional life. I'm a manager at a shop where we maintain a relaxed, cannabis-friendly environment for our employees, provided it doesn't interfere with their work performance. We're like a big family of laid-back individuals. We know which team members can handle working under the influence, and who should abstain during work hours. One of my employees, whom I'll call Scooby, has started developing a habit of lying frequently. He's quite the entertainer, always doing impressions and keeping everyone laughing, but is also somewhat of a slacker. Recently, his dishonesty has become more pronounced. One day, Scooby arrived at work looking unusually quiet and visibly upset. He was moving slower than usual, not engaging with anyone, despite us being in the midst of a busy shift. Concerned, we pulled him aside. He confided in the store owner that his father had just passed away, and he was struggling to cope. He asked us not to tell anyone else, saying he's not the type to share his personal burdens openly. Feeling sympathetic, the owner and I gave him a comforting hug and encouraged him to go home, telling him to take all the time he needed. After a couple of days, Scooby returned to work, and everything seemed to be back to normal. Then, a few days later, a man walked into the store and asked to see Scooby. He said, "I was wondering if I could see Scooby, that's my son." Surprised, I asked, "You're his dad?" He replied, "Yeah, we look alike, don't we?" And indeed, they were the spitting image of each other. Confronted with the realization that Scooby had lied about his father's death, I pulled the owner aside to discuss what we should do. He pointed out that we're severely understaffed at the moment, and firing Scooby would be counterproductive. We're in the process of training 3 new hires, and letting him go would force our more experienced staff to work over 50 hours a week. Essentially, our team consists of just a few people, plus the owners. He advised me not to confront Scooby, and assured me that he and his wife would handle the situation. A few weeks passed, and I reached the point where I couldn't trust anything Scooby said. Despite the owners speaking to him about his dishonesty, the lying didn't cease. He began taking time off work, claiming he was constantly ill. At one point, he missed several consecutive days due to alleged vomiting and digestive problems. He told us he'd seen a doctor, who diagnosed him with an egg allergy. Supposedly, after eliminating eggs from his diet, he felt better. Yet, I'd occasionally catch him eating egg sandwiches we provide for employee lunches. Another time, he arrived at work looking despondent, claiming his girlfriend had broken up with him. His productivity plummeted. We advised him to leave his personal issues at the door and sent him home. That very night, I saw photos of him and his girlfriend cuddling and looking happy on social media. I'm at a loss. I can't even look Scooby in the eye anymore, and my boss refuses to terminate his employment. Should I just tolerate it and let this habitual liar continue deceiving me every time he wants time off? When I discussed the matter with the owners, they acknowledged they were aware of his behavior. It's challenging, because confronting him hasn't changed anything, and we're short-staffed. The main way this situation affects me is that I occasionally have to cover his shifts. I've told the owners that if this continues, they'll need to find someone else to cover for him, because I'm exhausted from working extra hours due to his constant excuses. Some suggested that perhaps there's an environment of fear or disapproval around requesting time off. I acknowledged that might be part of the issue initially. However, he needs to have the courage to request time off if he genuinely needs it. Unfortunately, he's asking for time off simply because he doesn't want to work, and that's what's truly frustrating. To vent a bit, I even invited Scooby into my home, expressing my condolences for his supposed loss. I genuinely felt for him. Then, his dad walks into the store, and Scooby continues to lie. He told everyone a different story, that the man wasn't actually his father, but his uncle whom he sometimes calls Dad. It was nonsense, and when confronted, he'd just fall silent, admitting his deceit through his silence. We frequently call him out and embarrass him about his incessant lying, yet he persists. I can't fathom why he continues this behavior. It must be some kind of psychological problem. We're trying our best to train new employees, but time is scarce. We've even had to ask people to come in at 3 a.m. to prepare products before opening. However, it's challenging to find people available to work such early hours. About 2 months have passed since all this began, and a lot of wild developments have occurred. Everyone seemed to brush off the dead dad incident eventually. I was the last to let it go, but I did eventually. Looking back, I probably shouldn't have, because Scooby never admitted to the lie. He just pretended it never happened. He attempted to concoct more lies to avoid working his scheduled holiday shifts, Christmas and New Year's, but no one believed him. He was warned that if he didn't show up, he'd be fired. He managed to come in for the Christmas shift, but overslept and missed the New Year's shift. Fortunately, we didn't need him that day anyway, and a new hire covered for him. Everyone was angry with him once more, and has been on thin ice since. Things really escalated in the past few days. Recently, his unstable girlfriend discovered him sitting in a car with one of our co-workers, Sky. She lost control and began banging on Sky's window. Scooby jumped out to try and calm her down, and Sky drove off. His girlfriend then got into her own car, and repeatedly attempted to cut Sky off in traffic. At least, that's what I heard from my boss. Eventually, she gave up. Sky made it home safely and sent Scooby an angry text message. That evening, I stopped by the store owner's house to pick up something for the shop. They informed me that Scooby had called, saying he wouldn't be able to work for the next few days, because he had a big fight with his girlfriend and she slashed his tires. The following morning, I arrived for my shift, and Scooby called the store. His speech was slow, mumbled, and slurred. I immediately suspected he was under the influence of something. He often brags about using substances like acid and other drugs. He proceeded to tell me a story about how, after his girlfriend slashed his tires, she calmed down, and they were walking around their neighborhood, which is in some warehouse district. Apparently, they were looking for a store to get money to call a tow truck for his car. While they were walking, he claimed they were mugged. He said he's okay, but his girlfriend was beaten badly, and they took all their money. Due to this incident, he wouldn't be able to work for the next few days, which happened to be around Valentine's Day, our busiest time of the year. At this point, none of us even wanted to talk to him anymore. Everything culminated this morning. The owner arrived, and I asked if anyone had heard from Scooby. Essentially, she uncovered a thread, and his entire web of lies unraveled. Yesterday afternoon, Scooby actually called the store using a disguised voice and asked for one of our co-workers, Ashley. He requested that she meet him behind the store with his paycheck, which had been left at the cash register. He did this to avoid speaking with the owner. However, the owner became aware of his plan and went out back with his paycheck. When he saw her, he literally ran away. He returned about half an hour later with fresh scratches on his neck, because, you know, when you're mugged by a group of guys, they scratch your neck. She confronted him about everything, telling him she doesn't believe a word he says, but that she cares about him and wishes he'd stop making such poor choices. By the end of the conversation, he essentially confessed to all his lies, and he was finally terminated from his position. And so concludes the story of Scooby, the wandering liar. Reflecting on Scooby, he's the type of person who's so entrenched in his own perspective that he believes his outrageous lies will deceive anyone. It baffled me. I couldn't comprehend how he navigated life this way, but over time, I discovered more about him that showed he was a constant source of poor decisions. That was quintessential Scooby. He was arrested a month ago and jailed because he confessed to shoplifting that his girlfriend had done. He was already on probation for other issues, but managed to get off lightly due to a legal technicality. However, spending 2 days in jail didn't prompt Scooby to straighten out his life. His parents evicted him, and he's been bouncing between staying with his girlfriend and his ex-girlfriend whenever he and his current girlfriend have arguments. It sounds like a bad soap opera, and none of us can comprehend why he allows himself to be in such predicaments. He needs a serious wake-up call from someone who cares about him, because he's heading down a very destructive path. Regarding Scooby fleeing from the owner, it seems he spotted her before she reached the back area, darted behind a wall, and sprinted around the corner to his car before she exited through the back door. She witnessed him speeding out of the parking lot in the same car he had claimed was incapacitated due to slashed tires, an excuse he'd used to avoid work. When someone asked why a donut shop is busy on Valentine's Day, I replied, "Who knows? It just turned out that way." For the past 2 years since the shop opened, people seem to enjoy being creative with their Valentine's Day gifts, opting for donuts instead of traditional flowers and chocolates.